And
Well,
can I introduce my friend who will introduce everything else? Softy Mahler from KJR. We've been on the road together at a few bowl games with the Huskies, and he has been a supporter. Anytime I've asked him to come around, he's jumped right in to help us. And he's been our MC the last few years at the Matt Talbot Center. So since we're virtual, he is still our MC of choice. And Softy, it's all yours, buddy.
Well, I appreciate that, guys. And first of all, I've always, on my bucket list, I wanted to do a fundraiser on Zoom, and now I can cross that off the list. So I've accomplished that in my life, and I just want you guys to know that there may be an appearance at some point by a couple of dogs. You could see a cat walk by, maybe even a wife. So just kind of keep an eye out for all that stuff behind the scenes. But thank you to everybody for jumping on with us today. Obviously, all of us would love to be at the Matt Talbot Center in person, having some bacon, enjoying some coffee, and having an auction, raising some money for a great cause. But obviously, because of things out of our control, that wasn't going to happen. So the fact that everybody was able to come together here and be a part of this is awesome. It just shows you how much people care about what Greg and his staff do behind the scenes at the Matt Talbot Center. And before we get going, I want to do a big shout out to Zelda Buck for putting this whole thing together. So virtual round of applause for Zelda, who's been awesome getting all this stuff connected. She's the brains behind the operation. There's no question about that. So if all the guests could just mute their microphones, that'd be great. We're trying to limit the background noise as much as we can. We got some people chiming in with us in the next hour or so. Jen Cohen, the AD at Washington, is going to jump on and talk with us about what's happening behind the scenes over at UW. As you guys know, they brought all their athletes back to campus, or they're starting to bring their athletes back to campus this week. On Monday, testing athletes, quarantining athletes if they have to. We were talking before this began that they actually, have taken some of the equipment from the weight room and they've put it on the concourse at Husky Stadium. So, where you go to buy concessions, hot dogs and sodas during games and popcorn, you might see a bench press or a leg press there on the concourse. So they're doing, as much as they can to spread the kids out. So we'll talk to Jen about all that stuff. Big thanks to all of our sponsors who have been a part of this for many years. Of course, the folks over at Guild Mortgage who have just been awesome for us here at the center. PLB, Haight Carpet and Interiors, McBride Financial Advisors, Passport Unlimited, Morissette Accounting Solutions, Dimitri's Gourmet Mixes. And we have a lot of people, again, that we got to get to on the call. But before we get to Jen, and she'll be calling in about 10 minutes or so, we're going to hear from Cliff Avril as well, the former Seahawk. I think Isaiah Stanback is going to jump on as well, the former Dog, and Garfield Bulldog will be with us at some point. But I want to bring Greg back in the mix for a little bit. Greg Alex, the director of the Matt Talbot Center, who, as he said there, I've known for a long, long time. I got to know Greg, first of all, through his ties to Washington. And there's only two people I've met in my life where I can't find anyone to say a bad word about him. Number one is Dick Baird from UW, who you guys know as well. And the other is Greg Alex. It's not very often that you find somebody who is universally beloved by everybody the way Greg is. So, Greg, first of all, thanks again for having us, man. And then second of all, talk about kind of what's happening behind the scenes at the Matt Talbot Center, especially in this era of COVID where it's hard to raise money. It's hard to have events. It's hard to get people the help they need sometimes in person. What's been going on behind the scenes with you guys the last 3 months?
Well, you're right. It's behind the scenes, Softy. And I'm sure there are a few folks that have a few things to say about me that are not
somewhere. Maybe one day we'll find it.
Often, I should hire you as a PR guy for it. Even when I look in the mirror and have to examine my own conscience. So thank you very much, because we all have our flaws. One of them, I am constantly having to be reminded to make sure I got my mask on.
There you go.
In settings. My wife is an RN, so we're constantly discussing the subject. What's going on with us downtown at Matt Talbot Center is the work that we've always done. Unfortunately, this is affecting everybody and everything, but it doesn't stop the issue of addiction that is out there that people are having to deal with. And we knew that from the beginning. Fortunately, we had great IT help. And we had great staff that was committed. We did testing. We actually had the test folks come out and set up and had offered tests to the folks in our apartments in Trowgate Terrace, in Emmanuel, and in our program staff, and we ended up with 0, which was the right number to have. 0 positive results.
Right.
Everybody came back negative. Our folks are healthy. We are working every day. We are busy every day. We've got people still coming in that are looking for help. But we fortunately have been able to, I'll use the term sequester our folks, so to speak, to provide housing for them. So everybody has been able to stay, that we're working with, has been able to stay off the streets in a clean, sober, and sanitary, secure facility. We've been doing testing, I'm sorry, not testing, but we've been doing programming via Zoom and Microsoft Meet. So we're doing classes for our folks. Addiction doesn't need isolation. It's the worst thing in the world you could actually give folks. I remember a few years ago, a statement I've often repeated, and I know it had to come from the Lord because it was too smart to be from me or anybody, even the bright folks I knew. But it said that isolation is the dark room you develop your negatives in. And although today not many folks have cameras that use negatives, but that's what happens with addiction. The last thing that we need our folks to do is be in isolation. So we've maintained them in community, but secure community. They're going to class every day, just like my grandkids are. They're getting on the Zoom. They're doing group meetings. They're doing processes. And fortunately, we've got a critical mass in these places where they can actually get together and work on issues, talk to each other, and get exercise, do all the things they need to do. So fortunately, our staff is engaged every day from 8 a.m. till about 2 p.m. on the Zoom, one-on-one counseling and group sessions. And our folks are staying pretty much clean and sober. And we've been there to intake. I think had doing a couple of intakes virtually every day in this. Yeah.
No, I think, and Greg, I've said this a couple of times on the air that, I mean, not all of us are going to be affected by the virus physically, obviously. The odds of still getting the virus are still fairly low, but I think all of us are affected by this mentally, no doubt, in some form or fashion, whether you're depressed, whether you turned substance abuse or whatever. And I mean, for me, just I call it like pandemic poundage. I've been putting on a couple pounds, sitting at home, snacking all day long because there's nothing else to do, for crying out loud. But talk about that. Talk about just kind of the mental aspect of all this and how this affects not just your people at the center, but also just you in general.
Oh, yeah. We are social beings. We are made for relationship. We're made for engagement, mutuality. We're not very good alone. We're meant to be with other people. We share. Something I read this morning just brought it back home to me in my daily reading. It's a passage that says, "Iron sharpens iron." I mean, you look for edge. Worst thing you can do is cut with a fine knife. Cut bread. It's soft. It's easy. You need something with a little friction to it, and that engagement with people helps that. This is tough. I mean, you look at some of the statistics. You look at all the stuff going on up at on Capitol Hill and in some other places. Just people were bottled up, and when there was a chance to get out, it's just people trying to find a way to find a level of comfort, of peace, of something. Because being by ourselves it's not good. There's a book that has this very simple line. It's not good for man to be alone. And this is that time. So people are trying to find their way out. And unfortunately, it's playing havoc with folks mentally.
No question. And like we said, we've got a few people that we're going to be throwing on from time to time. Obviously, we're going to hear from Jen Cohen, the 88 UW, in a matter of minutes. But Zelda just sent me a note that said one of my favorite Huskies of all time actually just chimed in. I believe he's in Dallas, a former Patriot, former Seahawk. Is Isaiah Stanback with us? Isaiah, you there, pal?
Yes, sir, man. How you doing, Zoff?
There he is. What's happening, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm trying not to burn up down here, man. Y'all need to borrow some of this heat.
Hey, listen, we could use it. We could use it for sure. Hey, talk about how things are going down there for you guys. You know, I'm curious. I know everybody else would be curious to kind of get a sense of what the atmosphere is like down there with the virus and with the protests. Obviously, there's some odd times up here in Seattle, as you know. But how's the atmosphere down in your neck of the woods, man?
Well, you know, it's definitely a little bit different environment down here in Texas. It couldn't be more different down here in Texas than it could be in Seattle. But it's, you know, it's kind of like it is everywhere else, right? It's a little bit crazy. Obviously, there's different protests going on. You have, I think, a lot more here. You have a lot more different, I guess, just differences in beliefs down here, differences in political stances and things of that nature. So it's a lot more, I would say, tense down here than it is up there. Seattle people are a lot more outspoken, and they make it known, and I think that's awesome. Down here, you know, people are just more so would rather just not have the conversation. Right. So it's almost worse, right? In that sense. So you know, there's things that are happening, you know, within communities and things of that such, and people are just being quiet. And I've been one to obviously start having those conversations with. I've talked to the superintendent. I've talked to the police chief a number of times. I'm starting to sit down and have those conversations. And it's just a little bit wild, man. It's a little bit wild down here. Unfortunately, I talked to my friends, you know, about some of the protests and peaceful marches up there. And he said like 98% of the people are wearing masks. And I was like, that's awesome. Down here, it's almost like people feel like they're untouchable. You know, I would say that maybe 40% of the people are wearing masks. And it baffles me. It baffles me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 1,000%. I don't know when wearing a mask became a political thing, but you know, I mean, you get a cut on your arm, you put a Band-Aid on it. If there's a virus going around, you wear a mask, and that shouldn't be about Republican, Democrat, red, blue, black, white, whatever. It shouldn't matter. So I'm with you on that 1,000%. But Isaiah Stanback again is joining us here on the call. Jen Cohen, UW AD, will join us in a matter of minutes. I had a guy on from CBS on my show the other day, pal. And he told me, Jason Lockenfora did, that he could see 1,000 players taking a knee for week one of the NFL season. Could you envision something like that happen?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, guys wanted to do it before, you know, and some guys didn't really care what the repercussions were. And I think that's awesome. You shouldn't have this, you know, big brother hand over you that's kind of dictating what you can and can't say and how you feel. You shouldn't be forced to submerge your feelings simply because it doesn't correlate with, you know, the boss man's you know, ideologies. You know, so I'm really excited in the sense that people are allowed to voice, being allowed now the platform to voice their opinions as you're supposedly supposed to here in this country. And you know, I'm looking forward to, you know, people having that platform because people need to hear, you know, regardless of what your belief system is. You know, I tell people you need to, you know, to old white man can't jump reference. You know, you don't hear me. I need you to listen to me. You know, we don't have to agree. Right. But I think we all need to be able to step back and listen to what somebody else's perspective is. And then we can start taking it into account as we go about our lives.
Well, for those just joining us again, Isaiah Stanback, former Husky quarterback, former Garfield Bulldog, more importantly, is with us on the call here. And Isaiah, you got Greg Alex there, obviously. We all know Greg. We've known Greg for a long time, but give us a take on what you've been able to observe and learn from Greg over the years. I know you've known him for a long, long time, since you were a kid, going back to your high school, junior high days. What has he meant to you, and what has the Matt Talbot Center meant to you, man? Absolutely.
Well, I call him Sir Alex, right? And that comes from when he was my Taekwondo instructor ages ago. I think I might have been maybe 10 years old. So he's been in my life for over 25 years now, and he's been just that consistent piece that I can always turn to. You know, we don't necessarily talk every day, but I know that he's always there for me and my fam. And you know, whenever I'm in town, I try to stop by and try to steal some of his wisdom that he's had. He's always been there for me, and he talked me through a lot of situations when I was going through UW. I dealt with a lot. I dealt with a whole lot, and he was there during that time. So he helped guide me through all that mental anguish and stress and frustration. And there's about other things that's popped up in my family. So he's always been there for me as a mentor and as family. Yeah. But in terms of, and then also, you know, my involvement with the Matt Talbot Center for over the years, the work that he's done down there, obviously everybody on this call is very, very knowledgeable about. And he's just, you know, he's passionate. You know, he's passionate. He has a big heart. You know, I think he puts God's will above his or anybody else's. and that's the way it should be. And he's going out and he's utilizing the gifts and talents and the platform that he has to try to affect as many lives as possible. So hats off to him.
No doubt. Well, listen, man, it's great to see you. Great to hear your voice. Stay on the line with us. We might come back to you as we continue here. But I know you're a big fan of this next person, Isaiah, joining us right now on the call, the athletic director over at Washington. And what a challenge for Jen Cohen to get things together as athletes are coming back on campus this week. Jen, do we have you? How are you?
I'm doing great. First of all, hi, Isaiah.
What's up, Jen?
Mr. Alex, so good to see you.
How are you, Jen?
Great to see you all. So, yeah, it's exciting to see some student athletes around here. I'm like yelling at them. I'm driving by. We've got face masks on, and I'm like, welcome back. So, yes.
By the way, I got to show you my mask because it's got the KJ logo and the Husky logo and my name on it. So there you go. I like it. Let's see that mask.
This
Jen.
one doesn't have a KJR logo on. Sorry.
I love it. Well, talk about what this week has been like for you guys so far. I mean, it's only been, a few days since the kids started coming back, but what's the atmosphere like on campus right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things we keep trying to explain to our students and our coaches and our staff that this is such a slow dial, right? Yeah. The atmosphere here isn't what it used to be right now. We're not going back to quote unquote normal, but we are getting to do what we're here to do, which is to serve our students and be able to do that in person. So we're really fortunate at UW because we have such an incredible medical team, and not just our medical team assigned to our student athletes, but all the people that work within the university system. And so our week has been focused on physicals, testing, just having Saha get an eye on some of these guys and Coach Tukin on some of the other athletes just to see what kind of shape that they're in. And hopefully if we have people that are healthy, we have a lot of people that have been quarantining before they could come in and get tested. We hope that we can start doing some small outdoor group workouts starting on Friday.
Right. Hey, by the way, if anybody is just joining, if you guys could all mute your mics, that'd be great. I thought I heard some keys rattling in the background. So if anybody could just mute your mic, that would be great. But Jen, Kim Harmon was with us a couple of days ago on the radio show and talked about some of the protocols. And I guess there's this assumption that if a kid or two get tested positive for the virus, that there's going to be a lot of problems. And that wasn't the vibe that Kim gave off at all. There was a lot of calm with her, not panic. Talk about kind of what the protocol looks like and what the thought process is if one of your kids does test positive.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole goal of testing is to catch an issue if you have it, right? I don't think people are testing and thinking, oh, we're going to test and never have somebody test positive, right? So the key is to have enough proactive testing and then have enough protocols in place for our student athletes to not get the virus while they're here. But if they do, because of our rigorous testing program, we do have protocols in place to isolate them and to help them get healthy until they're able to come back. So, that's the thing with proactive testing is that you're actually trying to get ahead of a situation and be able to treat a situation. The issue will be what you don't want is to have big clusters, right? If you have big clusters of students or staff that get sick all at the same time, that will become an issue. But I think our medical team feels confident in the plan that they have today. We also recognize that this is a growing and evolving situation, right? Nobody has all the answers to this. And so that's why we're being really cautious with how we're bringing students back into our footprint.
All right, so a lot of Husky fans are on this call. Obviously, there's some serious things to talk about, and it kind of feels like football itself is maybe taken a bit of a step back because of obvious reasons. But as we sit here right now on the 17th of June, we got a few months to go before September. What's the overall gut feel on the non-conference schedule, the Michigan game, and what the crowds look like at all if we do have crowds in September?
I have changed my mind about this every day. So I don't know anything more than you all know, but I do think it's a step in the right direction to be able to start providing care and access for our students. So we're on a path, right? And so that's encouraging. I do think that if we are able to have fall sports, that we're anticipating that those fall sports from a spectator standpoint would be in a social distance venue, not a full capacity venue. So we are preparing for that. But honestly, we just want to be able to provide support for our students And that's really where our number one focus is right now. And I think the next 4 to 6 weeks, not just here, but everywhere in our country, we're going to continue to learn a lot about this virus and a lot about how we're going to be able to manage it and whether or not sports activities are going to be something that we all feel comfortable with. I just don't think we still know for sure what the fall is going to look like.
Yeah. How much are you talking to other ADs around the country, other schools, other conferences to kind of pick each other's brain on how to approach this?
That's a daily conversation. This is a very tight-knit group of people that work in college athletics. We all know each other. We all care about each other because we understand what it's like to serve in these roles. So, I have colleagues at every Power 5 conference that are ADs. I have colleagues that are other smaller Division I schools. Our conference itself, the athletic directors in the Pac-12, we spend at least 3 calls a week with each other. And so there's just a lot of dialogue going on. I think just like everything else we're seeing in our country, everybody's opinions vary based on which state they live in. And so that's very real in the college athletic world right now.
All right. Before you go, we know you have a busy day. We appreciate you taking time out to be with us, but you see Greg there. He's probably tweeting or Facebooking on his phone there. I have no idea what he's doing behind the scenes.
I was just trying to make sure somebody got the link. But Jan, thank you very, very much for being with us. Thanks for your support. Thanks for what you do every day. I really appreciate you. You got a great, I got to give you a shout out to your guy, Rob Scheidigger. I mean, he's always been there for the kids. And I appreciate his diligence to, I know he's the one right there taking care of the kids. Please tell him I said hello.
I will for sure. Greg, we promoted him literally the week that COVID hit.
I saw
you are Associate Athletic Director for Health and Wellness for all the reasons you're describing. There's nobody more committed to the students and to really being able to connect with them. So thank you for that. But Greg, thank you to you.
Yeah.
All the students' lives that you've impacted and everything that you've done for our community. And I haven't seen you in a long time, and I'm just really happy to see you and say thank you to you for the difference that you make, because you're an incredible guy.
Oh,
so, thank you.
But I seeing Jimmy, Coach Lake. I'm sorry, I have to call him Coach.
You can call him Jimmy.
Yeah, I remember when he was here in an earlier administration. I was on the staff and working with him, and he's a phenomenal guy. So I'm just real pleased to see him at the helm of the program. I know they're going to aggressively go after it and get us where we need to be. So
I just actually got off the phone with him right before I hopped on. And so, talk about an optimist, right? And an energy guy. This is his first year. How is this even possible? And you would never know that there was anything that had been thrown his way that was tripping him up. His mindset is phenomenal. That's the thing I love about being around people in sports. Isaiah, you're a great example of this. I've learned so much from our student athletes and our coaches about leadership more than I have anywhere else, because so much of our ability to make a difference in the world is all about how we think about it and how we control our minds. And Softy, I'm always talking to you about that, right?
Yeah, always.
All these crazy people you got to always deal with and try to keep happy. And at the end of the day, it's about, us focusing on our minds. So, Greg, you're awesome. Softy, this is great. Isaiah, so good to see you.
Can I give a quick shout out to Jen also, that one of the best stories this whole week to start my week off was the 2 girls of color that from the cheer squad, they got reinstated. Yep. And wouldn't you know, the 2 senior girls that have been in cheer their whole life just happened to both be Black, and you got involved and made sure you heard their story, and you got a big shout out with that. And that was just a wonderful story to get them both reinstated on that cheer squad.
Yeah, it would have been better if we would have never found ourselves in that position. So I'm disappointed that we found ourselves there. But sometimes you just have to act on a situation that you're in that should have been handled better and move forward. And that's what we did. So I'm excited to see them both cheer and dance this upcoming year.
No doubt. Jen Cohen, thank you so much for doing this. And we'll talk down the road. Appreciate it.
Good luck, y'all. See ya.
Bye.
Go Dogs.
There you go. That was awesome. She is, Greg knows how cool Jen is, and she is a Husky through and through. There's no question about that. And I can't imagine to have a better person to kind of guide and steward you, Doug, through this crazy time we're living in than Jen Cohen. But we're going to go from the Huskies to the Seahawks for a second, because joining us right now on the Zoom call, everybody remembers Malcolm Smith's pick six against the Broncos in the Super Bowl. But the whole reason why that play was able to happen was because of our next guest. Number 56, Cliff Avril, is with us right now on the call. Cliff, how are you, man? What's going on?
I am well. I'm happy to be with you guys. How are things on your end? How's everything going?
Everything's good, man. I love that background that you've got behind you. Tell us about that, because that play looks familiar with no Sean Marino right there.
So in my little game room, or whatever you want to call it, I kind of have it going down memory lane. Detroit's down there, Purdue, and then of course you got to have the championship. But I have all my guys, all my defensive players. You look up top, you see Cam, Sherm, and all these guys. It's just more of a, it was part of something really special, and I decided I want to get it painted on my wall.
No, that is incredible, man. But, that is really, really cool. Hey, dude, listen, I think there's a lot of guys whose reaction we'd love to have to what's happening in our country right now, but no more than you, because you lived it. You were there when Colin Kaepernick took a knee for the first time 4 years ago. What do you make of everything happening in our country, the protests, the reaction of white people, for example, who seem like they've just had enough, and we're all joining now together to stop this nonsense? And Roger Goodell even came out a couple days ago and said that he was apologetic for not listening to Colin Kaepernick and NFL players more so 4 years ago. What do you make of the whole atmosphere of not just the country, but the NFL right now, man?
Well, let's start with the NFL. I think it's interesting that Roger Goodell would come out and say some of these different things. Now, I actually got to meet with him, when I was playing. Myself, Michael Bennett, and a couple of other ones that, just trying to talk about why guys are protesting, right? And he sounded receptive and different things like that, but, never really came around. Maybe he took it to the owners, and obviously they probably had something else in mind. I think it's interesting as well from the perspective for Roger Goodell. Honestly, I think the NFL just has no choice right now. Even if they don't believe the movement, they don't believe in the movement or whatnot, they kind of don't have a choice, because all their partnerships, all their, people that are cutting the checks, they are a part of the movement, right? So they don't want to be the ones kind of looking from the outside, in a sense. And at the end of the day, they're a business, so they got to do what's right by the business. Overall, though, I do see them trying to make a little bit of change here and there, and you got to take it, obviously, and they're more receptive. But now people are actually listening to the message, right? Yeah. Beforehand, they made, a story about, hey, it being about the flag. Nobody ever said anything about that, right? And now people are actually listening. People are seeing kind of what the message was, and it is police brutality. It is, just the social economic piece of it. There's just a wide range of different things that is why people were kneeling, and now people are getting behind it, which is great. Now, as far as for what the country and the world is doing, it's awesome to see. It's awesome to see. The one positive thing I would say from COVID is the fact that everyone is sitting at home and they're having to listen to this. There's no distraction. There's no work. There's no kids going to school. There's none of that stuff. So people are actually listening to the message. And I believe that's why so many people have gotten behind this movement and are starting to see, that, hey, it wasn't about the flag. And this is a real issue in America, or a real issue around the world. And we need to kind of try to have some reform of some sort.
Yeah, I always found it interesting to me that people who were upset about Kaepernick taking a knee were more upset about a guy taking a knee during the anthem than they were about what he was protesting in the first place, for crying out loud. So glad to see people kind of coming around on that. But does it feel different? Does it look different? People have been asking, and I've heard a lot of people saying that this just feels different. We've been down this road before where people have voiced opposition to racism and police brutality, but here we are now, almost 3 weeks, I think, after George Floyd's death, and we're still seeing protests all over the country. Does it feel different to you this time around?
Yes, it definitely does. It does. Again, I think it's a multiple of. There's a wide range of reasons why, but I think it's different because, again, so many people have gotten behind it, but also, people are being open-minded a little bit more, right? Initially, I think people are stuck in their ways and whatnot, but now, the message is getting pushed more and more. And again, there's no distractions right now. There's nothing else but to focus on human beings being mistreated. It ain't about being black or white. It's about human beings being mistreated, because when you do put a color on it, I think it separates the fact that we all are human beings, right? The human race. So it does feel different, and I hope it continues to push forward, and hopefully we can get some change.
Cliff, I want to get your thoughts on the Matt Talbot Center and the work that people like Greg are doing. And we know the stuff that you've been doing behind the scenes for your home country of Haiti throughout the years as well. So I want to get your thoughts on that in a second. But Colin Kaepernick, he came to town a few years ago to talk to the Seahawks. And Pete Carroll obviously has spoken publicly about him. And he's talked about how great a backup he'd be for Russell Wilson. And my first response has always been, well, if he's that great a backup, then why not sign the guy, for crying out loud? What's your take on Colin, if you think somebody will give him a chance? And could you see the Seahawks maybe being that team to give him a chance?
I think he will get opportunities. I think he will get, teams to call up, and I think he'll get workouts. I think a lot of those things will play a role. Will he sign? I don't really know. There's a lot of things that pushes against that as well, right? Because one thing I do know about the NFL, once you're out of the league for a year, it is extremely hard to get back into the league. 3 years is pretty hard. So we have to think about that piece. And I think for Cap as well, it's a little deeper than just getting his job back. I think it's more of like, this is what I was doing and I got blackballed. I need an apology. I need whatever else that comes with that. But it's a little bit deeper than him just playing. I do think he deserves a chance. But now, if you sign Cap, for example, we talk about we talk about the Seahawks, thinking about signing them. I was on the team at the time. I think the biggest issue that comes up with signing someone like Cap is not necessarily, obviously the play or anything like that. But when Cap walks into the Seahawks locker room, all the media, everybody is focused on Cap now. They're not focused on Russell Wilson. And now Russell Wilson, as the starter, has to answer questions about the second string guy. So it's more of a distraction in a sense. It's more of, putting Russell Wilson in an uncomfortable situation. And the quarterback position is the one position on the football team that you don't want to make uncomfortable, right? So I think that's more of the reason why they didn't sign him back then, and why it might make it a little bit harder to sign Cap now, because that starting quarterback will have to talk about the second string quarterback, which is, not something they want to do.
No question. Again, for those just joining, Cliff Avril is with us on the call. If you guys could all mute your mics, that would be awesome. And by the way, you guys are doing a great job of muting your mics, so we appreciate that here for sure. You've got your family foundation that we all know about. You've done a ton of work with the people of Haiti. Talk about when it comes to you and your passion for serving people experiencing addiction, homelessness, the work that people like Greg do and what that means to you.
Man, first off, Greg, appreciate you, my man. You're doing a great job. You're doing some great things in the community. Greg is one of the first people I met when I came to Seattle, and he's always been in my ear about, different things that I'm working on, different things that they're working on. Obviously, receiving a reward from those guys, it means a lot. I love what they're doing, first and foremost, right? With homelessness, and even through the pandemic, they've been continuing to help with homelessness and families and individuals through this pandemic. So I think it's just important for us as human beings to get back to just understanding and loving other human beings and doing for those that need the help, right? And there's a wide range of different things that we all can be doing to help. And also realizing how fortunate we are to be in this space. You talk about some of the stuff I do in Haiti. I do a wide range of things in Haiti where, we built the elementary school, we do football camps, there's an orphanage out there that I support. It's just, again, a wide range of different things. But the reason why I do it is because I used to watch my mom. She would have $50 in her account, and she would send 25 of it back to Haiti to her family. And our light bill is $60, but she would take half of her money and send it back, and understanding how blessed we are, how fortunate we are. We have a roof over our head. We got showers and different things like that. Some people over there can't even eat for the day. They haven't eaten in a few days, right? So just understanding how fortunate we are here in America, regardless of where you're at economically, we are super, super blessed. And I think it's just important for us to understand how blessed we are to be able to give those that are in need a little push. Because, again, if we don't do it, who's going to do it for them, Yeah,
no question. Greg, you want to jump in and grab the mic for a second here?
I want to thank Cliff for jumping on this morning. He and Tia were our award winners for the community MVP a couple of years ago. But I've watched him just recruit folks and take folks down and do the work in Haiti, and watch the stuff they're doing in the community for folks. He's one of the guys and I say most of them are. I don't know too many that aren't over at the Seahawks, but Cliff, I know, was one of those guys that just jumped in knee deep into it when he's not at his job, because that's what it is. Playing ball for him is a job, but they were looking at ways they could do things in the community to help some other folks. So I just really appreciate his consistency at that. Even after he stopped playing, they're still doing, and they're still heading down to Haiti. So Cliff, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for being a support to so many folks out there, you and Tia and your family, man. And let's get us back where we belong, back in that Super Bowl.
No doubt.
Guys, and keep coaching them up, talking to them. All right, buddy. Appreciate you.
No doubt. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks to everybody that supports, what you're doing as well, right? Because it is the support that we need in order for these facilities and these things, these programs to continue to help those that are in need, that are battling different things or whatnot. So, thanks to all the support. But again, thank you, Greg, for everything that you're doing for them.
Cliff, listen, man, great stuff. Great to see you. The wall looks awesome. I believe that's the pose from the NFC Championship.
Yes, it is.
The day, if I remember correctly. So, looking good, man. Keep it up, and we'll talk down the road, buddy. Appreciate this, man.
I appreciate you guys having me. You guys have a good one.
God bless you. Thank you.
Cliff Avril, thanks to him. Jen Cohen, thanks to her. Isaiah Stanback is still with us. We may go back to Isaiah for a few more comments before we get out of here in a few minutes. But Greg, I want you to introduce Ruth, because Ruth has an incredible story about what she's been through and what you guys did for her. So why don't you introduce Ruth to everybody?
Well, thanks. I've got behind me a box of Wheaties, and this box of Wheaties, breakfast with
hello,
and this box of Wheaties happens to have a lady on it, a woman athlete, a woman who has dealt with challenges and overcome adversity and is truly a champion. And I want to introduce somebody that I need to find a way to get a box of Wheaties and get Ruth's picture on one of them.
There you go. We can do that. I think we can make that happen.
Yeah, she is one of our champions. She came in and she's really fought the fight for her own life, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, and she stayed the course from the day she's walked in the door and been a help to some other folks along the way. So I'll let her tell her story, but I'd like to introduce you to Ruth, and just know that she is an encouragement to all of us as she's walked this journey of recovery. Good morning, Ruth.
Good morning, sir. Hi, everybody. Thank you. That was a beautiful introduction. You're going to make me cry before I even start speaking. Okay, so I'm going to read what I wrote. Help me not be so nervous. So hello to everyone, and thank you for taking the time to be here. As we are witnessing so much changing in our world each day, it is of such importance to have a place to turn to for hope, help, and healing. Matt Talbot is one of these places. It was here at Matt Talbot that my life took a new direction on a journey of healing and the process of self-discovery. I came to Seattle around 15 months ago, homeless, addicted to drugs and alcohol, broken, and a victim of domestic violence. I knew no one and had nowhere to turn. That is when God led me to the doors of Matt Talbot, and Matt Talbot led me back to God, a sense of belonging, recovery, and a new way to live, and a family that I found in the staff and fellow members here. Through a lot of hard work and utilizing the tools they have given me, I am proud to say that I am strong, empowered, ambitious, productive woman of God today. Since graduating Matt Talbot, I have went on to work as an advocate for women at Catholic Community Services, empower other women and men alike, become a beautiful mother and a daughter and sister to my family. I'm also very proud to say that I just finished my first quarter at Seattle Central, on my journey to become a chemical dependency counselor. In a world where so many people are looking for a place to belong, be heard, and believe in hope, that is exactly what Matt Talbot gives to our community. Hope, healing, and restoration. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I can never say thank you enough to the Matt Talbot Center for giving me the greatest gift ever, the gift of me. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome, Ruth. Wow, well done. Very, very good job. And you are an inspiration, no question, for everybody on this call. Greg, tell us more about Ruth, because I'm pretty impressed with what I'm seeing over here. For somebody who claims she was nervous, she did a heck of a job. I mean, I may have to take a day off and have you do the radio show for a few hours, for crying out loud. Tell us more about Ruth and why she inspires you, Greg.
Well, the biggest thing is that I don't recognize that person if I think about who the person was that walked in the door. But then again, I don't remember the person that walked in the door because I've come to know Ruth. And every day she's come in, she's been a blessing and encouragement. She's been consistent. Doesn't mean that life hasn't thrown things at her in the process of this relationship with us. But I've watched her deal with them one by one. I've watched her work with her counselor. I've watched her, find a place to live and move up in that process. And then to hear what she's doing with school, because I didn't know that today. I didn't know she actually had started. I know she had plans. But for me, every time I hear one of our folks say that they're actually doing something that they wrote in their goals, every year we do this, particularly in January, we ask them to sit down and write out 3 to 5 goals for the next 6 months. And we work with them on what a real goal is and the objectives and how they're going to make that happen. And then we make them write it down so that they measure themselves by it. And with Ruth, when she's done those things, to see them start to come to fruition, to be able to check them off their list, guys like Cliff on his list was to play in the Super Bowl, to be in the Pro Bowl. He had a chance to check those things off the list. We end up being happy for them. But with Ruth, it's more than that. It's her whole family that benefits. So we're just grateful for what we've been able to see her do. She is it causes us to come to work each morning with a little more pep in our step.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Zelda to come over here for a second, and she has something to say about Ruth, because she's worked with her, gotten to know her, sat and had conversations with her.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry. I just had to come over because Ruth is someone that I met when I was early in my journey with the Matt Talbot Center, and she was obviously starting off hers. And it's really been a privilege to get to know you, Ruth, throughout my time with MTC. Ruth won't mention this because she's incredibly humble and does things not for recognition, but because she cares. But, we have chores as part of the Matt Talbot Center routine, and Ruth has held her own throughout her time with the center, even when she was, senior in the program, always seeing what she could do to help someone else and uplift them. She's always really been there and been a comforting, caring person for everybody in our program. And I've been really fortunate to be able to have a bond with you too, Ruth. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to be able to get to know you as well as our other members, but I just appreciate you so much. So I had to pop over and say something. Thank you.
I love it. And Ruth, my wife was just looking over my shoulder and wants to know who does your hair. Beautiful. You look great. Keep it up. And you know what? Hey, listen, if everybody wants to unmute their microphones for a quick second, if it's possible that everyone could just hit unmute for a quick second on their mic, and we can all give Ruth a big round of applause for what she's done and everything she's been a part of and the journey she's been on. It's awesome. Just an awesome story. And every year, I mean, Greg, I'm telling you, it really is one of my favorite parts, if not my favorite part of this event every year. As much as we love hearing from you, as much as we love hearing from people like you, hearing the success stories of folks like Ruth that have come through the Matt Talbot Center and not only have turned their lives around when it comes to addiction, but now obviously are looking out for other people as well. It's inspiring as heck, man, to hear these stories every year. So kudos to you guys for what you're doing, Greg.
Well, I had a friend, a guy named Miles Monroe from the Bahamas years ago, and he's something he used to say. He said, the definition for glory, the word glory, is a thing fulfilling its purpose. Mm-hmm. And when I see Ruth, and I know that she is the glory of what we do, because she is the fulfillment of our purpose. When we can see lives changed and restored and people going on to actually achieve their dreams, then I know that that's what this is all about. So thank you all.
Well, no doubt. And usually, Greg, we'd be sitting here having an auction, raising a little bit of money, but obviously it's hard to do that as we're sitting here over Zoom calls and doing things virtually. But what's on the schedule? What's on the agenda for you guys the next few months? And for folks that would like to support you guys financially, how do they do that?
We're going to look. It looks like nothing is changing quickly. So we will continue. We will stay to the task. It's kind of like Jerry Rice. You remember Jay Rice's deal was at practice, every practice, he would catch a pass and the rest of the guys would get mad at him because he'd run all the way to the end zone and practice scoring a touchdown. And in the end, the fact was that he scored more than anybody else because he practiced scoring more than anybody else, even when it didn't go on a scoreboard. Well, for us, we don't get to see the score. We're going to keep doing this every day because we believe our purpose is to help folks cross the finish line. And we need everybody's help to do that. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you this. Shaun Alexander's got a video that he sent us, and it's on our website. And Luke Willson, our tight end at the Seahawks, one of our tight ends who's been tremendous support to us ever since he got to the Seahawks, is also on there. So I encourage folks to go to the website to look at their two messages. You got a tour with you, Softy, through I guess I'd say Shaun's extensive man cave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's got a little bit of a better collection of accomplishments than I do. And I don't know about that Jerry Rice rule, man, because I practiced scoring a lot of touchdowns when I was a kid. I couldn't make it past high school. All right. So I think you have to have some talent, too. But there's no doubt, man, that.
I practiced hole-in-ones, but I haven't made one yet. So.
Exactly. Well, listen, man, on behalf of everybody on the call, thank you for what you guys do at the Matt Talbot Center. Thanks to Zelda for putting this whole thing on. She was awesome behind the scenes. And you saw the message she just put up there, mtcenter.org. Click on the donate button in the upper right-hand corner to make a donation. And hopefully, God willing, this time a year from now, we'll all be together and we can do this in person at the center and have some fun and enjoy ourselves with some good company. But I just want to thank everybody for jumping on. I know a lot of people are busy and a lot of people are asking for a lot of support these days for sure. But the amount of people that jumped on this call to be a part of this was awesome. It was inspiring. And hearing Ruth's story was incredible. So kudos to you guys at the Talbot Center, Greg, and the staff over there for what you guys are doing, because it does not go unnoticed at all.
Well, Softy, I thank you for being on this morning. Without this breakfast, we face that challenge. June 30 is the end of our fiscal year. And we have actually targeted that we have to raise about a little over $80,000, and we've got about half of that done. So our fiscal year ends up June 30. We're just really concerned about what happens as we go into the new year. Not just every organization. So my hope is, my prayer, my request to folks is not just us, but every organization that people give to. And I know folks have, some of our supporters, we know their businesses have been hit and they've still been generous. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to make the difference, because the need is still out there. And folks have reached into not just their pockets, but into their hearts and into their spirits. And I don't want to get into it, but I look at a lot of the folks that are online. I know they've been folks that have been there for us through not just thick or thin, but through their own thick or thin. And then now, and they've not stopped supporting us. So thank you all. Thanks, Softy, for being on this morning with us, man, to do this. Really appreciate you.
Well, it's my pleasure. And thanks to Cliff Avril. Thanks to Isaiah Stanback, who I think is still with us. Isaiah, thanks, pal, for doing that. And Thanks to Jen Cohen and Zelda. This whole thing was being recorded. Is that right? So if anybody wants to watch this later on, they can. Where do they find it? They jump on the website, mtcenter.org. Is that right?
Yeah, mtcenter.org, and it'll be up, and we'll post it up for folks.
Perfect.
And
I love it.
Also, I tell you that Charlie, I talked to Charlie Young, an old faithful supporter of ours, and one of the Seahawks from the earlier days, and he was trying to get on with us. I don't know if he made it on, but he wanted to make sure everybody, a lot of the folks that knew him, he wanted them to know he was doing great, and he was really thankful to see that we were alive and well and doing what we're doing, and wished everybody up here the best, and just be safe and be well.
You got it. All right, guys. Thank you to everybody again for joining us on the call. And hopefully, again, by this time next year, we can do this in person. So thanks to Greg. Thanks to Zelda, everybody for jumping on. And hopefully we will talk to everybody in person next year. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Softy. God bless you. Thank you all.